Welcome to this episode of Ink It Up with Jessica TV. Today I want to talk to you about paper cutters. I've had a lot of questions about them lately, so I wanted to show you the 3 paper cutters that I use on a regular basis. The first one is this larger Fiskars paper cutter that is a rotary cutter, and I got that shortly after I started card making about 15 years ago and have been using it ever since. I really like it because you can cut 3 to 4 sheets at a time of cardstock. And so if I'm cutting a lot of cardstock for a project, that makes it really easy. The second paper cutter I have here is the current one that you can get from Stampin' Up! Right here in the middle. And this I really like because it has a wide base. You can measure cardstock up to, well, a little over 6 inches long without pulling out an extra arm or anything. And it has a really nice base where the measurements are really nicely marked and they aren't going to wear off. And that's happened with some of my other paper cutters. The other thing I like about it is that you can have a scoring blade and a cutting blade on it at the same time, but they push out of the way so you can still cut 12 by 12 inch cardstock without them getting in the way and having to take them out. The one thing I don't really like is that the cutting and scoring blades are similar colors, so I was constantly forgetting which blade cut and which one scored. So I just wrote a little S on my scoring blade so that I could remember easily which was which. The only thing that I do not like about this this paper cutter, and the reason that I have to use this older one here to the right, is because you can't cut small pieces of cardstock. There's nothing here that will, it'll fall right through here. There's nothing to hold it in place. So when I'm cutting small strips of cardstock, I go ahead and use this older Fiskars paper cutter that I have here. And this one is really nice. I used this one for years. You can see that the cutting blades are orange and the scoring blade is black, so it's really easy to tell them apart. This one has a D on it for dull, and the reason I have a dull one on here is because I use this to cut things like window sheets, maybe even thin cardboard, anything that I don't want to use my good paper cutting blade for. Whenever they get a little bit dull, I write a D on them, and then I use them for those other things. This does have an arm that pulls out. And here's another quirk of me. For some reason, I use my paper cutters upside down. I don't know why, but all of the measurements are always upside down for me, the way that I like to use my cutter. But right on the bottom here, you'll see that there is an arm that comes out so that you can measure larger pieces of cardstock. So that one works well. But again, I really like this one because of the wide base. It's really helpful. Next, I want to give you a few tips for cutting your cardstock straight and for using this Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer. So first of all, you want to make sure that you use this side ledge of your paper trimmer. No matter what kind of paper cutter you have, it's going to have a ledge that you can push your cardstock up against. This is going to help you keep your cardstock straight and make sure that your cuts are straight. Another thing that I always make sure I do is pull the cutting blade away from the edge so that you're always cutting towards the edge that your paper is resting on. That way, when you push the cutting blade, it's pushing the paper up against that ledge and keeping it straight. Sometimes if you cut back this way, your paper will kind of shift as you move the cutting blade and it will go crooked. So I always make sure that I lift up my cutting blade and I'm cutting towards where I have my cardstock resting. This paper trimmer is actually really nice because you can switch in between these kind of cutting blades, which are just a little sharp blade, and a rotary blade. Also here you can see that it does have an arm that pulls out that you can measure cardstock up over 14 inches. So to switch out these blades for a rotary blade, all you do is pull on this edge here and this pops right out. After you take that out, you're just going to add the rotary cutter by doing kind of in reverse. You're just going to put these little hooks into the holes, and there you go. One thing that you have to make sure is that you lift this up, and there is a cutting blade strip here that has 2 different sides. If you are using these kind of blades here, you want to make sure that you have the track that goes in. If you're using your rotary cutter, you want to make sure that you switch it to the flat track. And then when you're going to cut your cardstock, again, I always cut towards where my cardstock is resting, but you just push down and make your cut. Another fun thing about this is that this has a blade that comes out, and you can replace that with a different blade. Just pops in and out, and then you can make fun, I didn't push hard enough there, you can make fun little cuts like this is a wave. So you can see with the rotary cutter, you need to push down a little bit harder as you move your blade along the cardstock to cut it. So I hope that these paper cutting tips were helpful for you. We'd love to know what kind of cutter you use, so please leave a comment and let us know.